So today I'd like to share with you the way I make fabric collage. I pretty much keep all kinds of scraps, really small scraps. I don't throw them away. And when I have a good amount, I like to make this fabric collage so that I can use it for small projects like little bags or totes, pencil cases, that kind of thing. So the way I start always with some kind of a base, and this can be a piece of fabric, like some kind of lining fabric, or it can be fusible interfacing, just like a piece of fusible interfacing, or directly onto a piece of batting. And with the batting, sometimes what I do also is, when I have small pieces, I also keep them, I don't throw them out, and I zigzag stitch them together to make a bigger piece of batting. And this works really well for this technique of fabric collage. I don't know if I would use this type of joining system for a bigger quilt, but it works really well for small projects. So what I've done with this one is I have just applied a thin layer of basting spray just to help keep the pieces in place. And then what I do is I just kind of place the pieces of fabric down any old way, without really any rhyme or reason. Okay, and I just start putting things down. Until I cover the whole piece of, in this case, the batting. As I said, you can do this with just a plain piece of fabric if you prefer. It all depends on what the final purpose of your project is. Okay, so I'll finish covering this. And it really doesn't matter if you work with coordinating fabric scraps or if you want to make it completely scrappy, just mixing and matching. Sometimes I do work with scraps in only one color family, like this. Okay, these are all reds. And in that case, when I work with only one color, what I'm going to do is zigzag stitch along the edges of the fabrics, and in this case I will use the red thread. In other cases, when there's a lot of different fabrics, I usually work with a gray thread, just to hold down the edges initially. So I'm going to work with this piece to show you. Okay, in this case, in this piece, what I did use was a piece of interfacing. This is fusible interfacing, so I kind of laid the pieces down and then I just held the hot iron to it. Obviously there are places where it won't stick down because one scrap is covering another one. But it's just to hold it in place until I can stitch the edges down. So once again, I'm just going to use a zigzag stitch to my first step, just to hold these pieces down. So I'm going to go do that and then I'll come back. Before I continue, I should mention that one of the things that I did was take time with my sewing machine to stitch out these samples of all the decorative stitches. And so what I did was I just made this, I guess you could call this a stitch Bible, where I jotted down the number of the stitch, and then I played with both the length and the width of each stitch so that I could see where, like starting with the default stitch, how by just changing those settings, the stitch could change quite a bit too. So I will use this also as a guide, often to use the decorative stitches on collage like what I'm doing today. And by doing that, you see I can get different effects. So instead of working through all the same stitch, by just changing that width or that length, I can get different effects, and so the stitches will look a little bit different. And so I really recommend that you take time to do this with your machine. This is very clearly on these. Sometimes you can get some very different effects by changing either the length or the width of the stitch. And then this is helpful in deciding what stitch you want to use for any given purpose. So that's an idea. The other thing too that I forgot to mention, that on these pieces that I'm working on today, if you use the same color thread, like in this case the red thread for the decorative stitches, they're not going to really show very well. Here the zigzag stitches, you can see that they kind of get hidden because they're the same color. So I do like to use contrasting threads for this, and sometimes it can be only one color, and sometimes I could switch with quite a few different colors. In this case, you can see this was a little piece that was left over already from some fabric collage, and this kind of dark turquoise color stands out pretty well, so I think that I will go with more of that color. And maybe I'll try out some other colors and see what I think. But so the whole purpose here now is to just play and have fun with this. I've finished zigzagging most of the edges on this piece. Every now and then, if there's a little edge that was not covered, don't worry about it, because the next step will be to cover this with decorative stitches, so at some point all of those little raw edges will get covered. The most important thing is just to use the zigzag stitch to kind of hold the pieces in place. And so on this piece you can see that I have used only red thread to hold all the pieces down. And on this one, since it has different colored fabrics, but most of them are light fabrics, and I decided to use a white thread. And here it's clear that some of the edges did not get stitched down, but I'm not going to worry about that because they will be covered with the decorative stitches. So since this one had batting on the back, I will continue in the same way, and maybe when I have a few, let's say maybe 3, 4, 5 decorative stitches that will go through at the end, and I will put a backing fabric on it, and the backing, those stitches will hold, then quilt the fabric at the same time. Then with this one was done on top of a fusible interfacing. So here too, I will cover it, and about halfway through using the decorative stitches, I will then put a piece of batting and backing on and finish quilting it with the rest of the decorative stitches. So I'll move on to that now. Okay, so let's look at some of my finished collages. In the end, with this thread one, I decided to go only with one color thread, and I mixed several decorative stitches. And you can see that, well, just the different stitches here. What I thought was really cool about this, and that's why I haven't added the batting or backing yet, because I just wanted to show you what it looks like on the back side. And this one, of course, I had started with the fusible interfacing. And here you can see where I had the zigzag stitches holding down the different pieces, and then of course the decorative stitches. And in itself, just this piece like this looks pretty interesting. Okay. Now let's look at some other samples. This one has been quilted with the decorative stitches themselves, and you can see on the back. And I have also added some couching. So I think there's about 4 or 5 different threads here that I've couched, and that will look kind of interesting within the project. And then purple one. Here I have 2 different color threads. The one is lighter than the other one. And something else that I should point out in this particular one, because I did have kind of larger pieces in this one, I didn't really zigzag stitch all the things out. What I did was I worked with a grid. And I don't know if you can kind of see that here. So to hold down the pieces initially, I just did a grid, both vertical and horizontal. And then I added the decorative stitches, and in many cases it's the decorative stitches that are holding the seams, the edges of the fabrics down. This one I've already cut into, but this is a sample of mixing different fabrics without really too much concern about whether they match or not, and working with strips. So here again, I did zigzag the edges down and then added decorative stitches. And then here's one that I've also cut into. I can tell from the shape that I made one of my favorite cases out of this. And here I did have, like, I think there's 4 different colored threads. And here you can see the different colors better on the side, on the back side. Okay. So invariably, after you cut into these pieces for your different projects, you are also left with leftover. We're always left with some kind of scrap, so we're left even with scraps from collage. And what I like to do is, when I have scraps like this, I will just go ahead and trim them and then sew them together, join them with a zigzag stitch, and we'll create a new piece of fabric. Okay? Whether they're quilted or not, I mean, this is what you can do, is just trim them so you have a straight line, join them, and you end up with a new piece of fabric. So what to do with all this fabric collage? Well, depending on the size, there are different projects. Like this is a rather large piece, so I could probably get like a notebook cover out of this, a large notebook cover, but they're different things. So I will share here at the end of this video a few photos of some of my favorite projects using fabric collage. I hope this tutorial has been useful for you, and I really thank you for watching.